Today, we're going to take a road trip, a deep dive into Kulatu Bosan's poem, Edwardsville by Heart. Now, on the surface, yeah, it's about a drive right through the American heartland. But it's so much more than that. It's this really powerful look into the American soul, and we see it all through the eyes of an immigrant narrator and his American buddy. And this is the question, right? It's really the beating heart of the whole poem. We're right there in the car with the narrator and his friend Chris as they head out to explore, each of them carrying their own, very different ideas of what America really is, and maybe what it could be. All right, so let's get into it. The journey, and this is key, it doesn't actually start on a highway. It starts in their minds, in their imagination, with this really romantic, almost movie-like vision of the American South. So you have the narrator and Chris, and for them, the country is this huge, open canvas of our youth. It's just this place that's waiting for them, a wide-open setting for adventure where they can ask these big, searching questions about all the stories they've ever been told. But here's the thing, even inside this perfect dream, there's this immediate tension. The poem sets it up right away. You got this beautiful idea of walking hand in hand like lovers, but it's instantly shadowed by the threat of cops on horseback with batons and what the poem calls the fangs of history, just waiting around the corner. And yeah, that tension doesn't just simmer, it builds, and it builds fast. Because that dream pretty quickly smacks right into a series of these sharp, really unsettling moments that show a much more complicated and honestly confrontational reality. The journey is just punctuated by these moments, like this one. A cop at an airport just barking that question. It's so sudden, so sharp. It's a challenge to the narrator's very presence, basically questioning his right to even be there in the first place. So you see, this isn't just a question about whether he can speak the language, is it? No way. It's a challenge to his whole identity. It's about who gets seen as belonging and who is immediately flagged as an outsider. And then, what do you know? It happens again. Another police stop. This time the question is polite, sure, but that polite sir barely covers up this underlying assumption that he's done something wrong. It's another point of friction that starts to grind away at that dream of the open road. And you have to understand, these aren't just one-off things in the poem. They're like this constant low hum in the background, a persistent friction that keeps reminding them that the canvas of our youth has some pretty tough borders and biases painted all over it. And the poem really hammers this point home with a symbol you see again and again, the Confederate flag. It shows that this isn't just something you see in a history book. It's a living, breathing presence they keep running into, making those fangs of history totally impossible to ignore. So moving on, you see that the travelers, they aren't just accidentally running into this history. Nope, they're actively looking for it. Their whole road trip starts to feel like a kind of pilgrimage, like they're trying to understand the country by visiting its historical soul. And this journey, it takes them through all these different layers of the American story. I mean, they're standing on ancient indigenous mounds in Cahokia. Then they're in Mark Twain's Hannibal. Then they're at the spot where Churchill gave his Iron Curtain speech. They even share in the grief of a modern tragedy in Cedar Rapids. They're really trying to take it all in. But for all the history they're seeing outside, the real battle, the most intense conflict, that's all happening inside the car. It's in the passionate arguments between these two friends. And this line from the poem, man, it just captures it perfectly. Their arguments aren't just some personal squabble. They're showing two completely different ways of seeing America, fueled by their own life experiences, clashing with all the noise we hear every single day. And it all comes down to where they're from, right? The narrator, he brings what he calls the toothless freedoms from Nigeria. He's comfortable with public defiance, with sarcasm, but that clashes hard with his American friend's more careful, almost fearful perspective, which has been shaped by a totally different set of rules about how you're supposed to act. So you've got all this tension, all these arguments, and it's all building to a head. It's all about to come to this sudden, really violent stop. The road and the debate are just about to run out. The whole conflict between them just boils over in this one act. The narrator, in this moment of just pure defiance, he taunts his friend about what freedom really means. But this time, his friend doesn't argue back. There's just silence and a face with, as the poem says, reams of the scare drawn taut. And that silence is absolutely deafening. And then this happens. Distracted. Right in the middle of a debate about American exceptionalism, the journey comes to a literal and very sudden crashing halt. And that's it. That's where the poem just leaves you hanging. The road trip is over, sure, but nothing is resolved. All those deep questions about history, about who you are, about what it means to dream of America, they're all just left hanging in the air, suspended right there in the wreckage. The road might have ended, but the real journey, well, that's just been thrown into a much harsher light.